When people first see me performing Wushu, modern Chinese martial arts, they'll always ask me if I have a dance background. But I have nothing of the sort. In fact, up until I discovered Wushu, I spent my entire life trying to avoid physical activity and avoid sweating. Growing up, I discovered that there were things that I was talented at and things that I was terrible at. And it was pretty clear right away which was which. At the age of 2, I listened to my brother play on the piano at home, fascinated. And then I climbed up onto the piano bench, and I played the tunes that I heard my grandmother singing to me. My parents were quite excited about this, and they had me signed up for music lessons right away. I continued on for 17 years. I was also quite good at studying, especially the maths and sciences, and I enjoyed the ease with which I could ace a science test, or I could listen to a song and create a musical arrangement by ear. I learned to enjoy things because I was good at them. On the other hand, there were also things that I dropped right away. These were all things that I discovered I had no natural talent for. This included gymnastics, swimming, ice skating, pretty much anything that had to do with physical activity, and of course, public speaking. So I kept this attitude pretty much throughout my entire life. Until 2 decades into my life, I witnessed something that made me want to consider changing my mind. It was my second year of college, and one of my friends was in a club called Wellesley Wushu. She asked me to come to their performance and support them, so that's what I did. That night, I saw a mind-blowing performance that broke my conceptions of what humans were physically capable of doing. I saw the club members and their coaches jumping and flipping across the stage that I had only seen in martial arts movies and thought that they had to use wires for. I saw a lot of fantastic Wushu that night, but there's one moment that sticks in my head even today. The moment I fell in love with Wushu. I saw Wellesley Wushu's coach soar across the stage like a figure skater, jump and spin 2 times in midair, and land from that jump in the splits. Watching him made me feel that nothing in the world was impossible. Of course, I knew he had to have some level of skill and talent, but talent could only take you so far. There was only one way that someone could achieve a level of beauty and artistry like that. Hours and hours of dedicated practice. For the first time, I started to dare to believe in the power of nurture. An idea popped into my head. What if a skinny, unathletic, inflexible girl like me could join Wellesley Wushu and actually do well in it? What if someone like me, who couldn't run 2 kilometers without developing a stomach cramp, or couldn't touch her toes, could join this club and perform Wushu at a level that actually expressed something beautiful? If I could do this, then I would know the power of nurture, and I would know that I could achieve anything I wanted to. Thus began my awkward but passionate Wushu journey. So, in a case like mine, how does someone pursue something that they feel set up for failure by the laws of nature? During a journey like this, you will face 2 types of hurdles at the very least, and I want to share with you 2 ways to overcome them. The first hurdle I faced was failure. One of the biggest and most prestigious events that Wellesley Wushu performed at was a Lunar New Year gala at Harvard University. We only had 1 month to prepare, and the choreography was more advanced than usual, but I didn't think too much about it, didn't worry, and just put in the best effort that I could. Midway through our month of preparation, our coach asked us to run through our choreography so he could check it. At the time, there was this forward roll in the choreography that I had attempted to, but couldn't do without hurting myself. So I just skipped to it and skipped to the next part of the choreography. The next day, we received an email from our coach telling us that some of us had been cut from the performance for the sake of quality, and I was one of them. This sudden exclusion was shocking to me, because up until that point, practicing with Wellesley Wushu had taught me that no matter how little natural ability I had, as long as I put in the hard work and effort, I would be able to stand on stage proudly with everyone else. But this failure shook my belief. However, I wasn't ready to give up in my belief in the power of nurture quite yet. So I looked for different ways in which I could nurture my way and nurture my Wushu. I had a friend in Harvard Wushu who had competed before, and one day when my coach didn't show up to practice, I asked him to teach me something. So he taught me a form that could be used in competition. This standard form was something that I never would have had the chance to learn in the context of my Wellesley Wushu club, because we mostly just focused on performances to do together. But finally, I had learned something as amazing as a solo form. I was encouraged by this, and I continued to meet people from other Wushu clubs and tried to see if they could teach me something. Eventually, Harvard Wushu taught me a Southern-style fist form and invited me to perform with them at another Lunar New Year event, also at Harvard Medical School. Later on, I invited them to come to our Taiwanese club's night market event, and we performed together. It was a huge success, one of the most enthusiastic audiences I've ever performed for to date. When I stopped comparing myself with other people's nature and tried to look for ways that I could nurture my skills instead, I was able to create my own success. The second lesson I learned was one on persistence. 3 years into my Wushu career, if you could call it that, I had moved to Hong Kong, and I discovered that everyone I met here practiced traditional martial arts, but no one could teach me modern Wushu, which was the one that I had fallen in love with. I only knew of one option. There was a master, a sifu, that my college friend had introduced me to. He was, to say the least, out of my league. He was a world champion multiple times, had trained on the Beijing Wushu team with Jet Li and Donnie Yen, and he was used to training professional athletes, world champions, and action stars. The only reason I saw for him to take me was that fact that I was a mutual connection. He was willing to take me, but I was terrified. I knew that even if I put in 130% of my efforts, there was no way I would ever impress him. Even he agreed that I didn't have any natural talent or natural know-how on how to move my body because I had never trained myself when I was young. He also said I was one of the stiffest people he'd ever trained, and I might have a problem with my tendons. But the most terrifying thing to me was I knew that if I trained with all of my efforts and trained with the world-class sifu like him, the best help that I could possibly find, and I didn't manage to do well in the end, I didn't think I could handle the disappointment. In the end, I decided that I owed it to myself to find out exactly how far I could go, no matter how terrified I was. So I found a competition 3 months from then in Tianjin, and I used it as a deadline for myself. Every day I practiced outside in the Hong Kong heat and practiced for 2 hours, recording myself throughout my practices. Watching my videos, I didn't see a single difference between the beginning of my practice and the end, even though my body felt like death. I was confused. This time I was finally putting in all of the hours that I needed, and I couldn't find possibly better help than the Sifu that I knew. So why wasn't I improving? I expressed my frustrations to one of my friends from college, also a Wushu practitioner, and he sent me a quotation from his favorite manga, My Hero Academia. Remember where you came from. To me, this quotation meant 2 things. Number 1, remember why you're here. I was here because I had to see my Wushu through to the end. And number 2, remember how far you've come. Looking back a little further into my videos, just 3 weeks, I was shocked to see a notable difference. And while this difference was nothing compared to if I had tried to learn a new song on the piano, or perhaps tried to study, while this was nothing, I found it way more valuable, that slow, gradual, but fulfilling progress that I could see because I had poured my blood, sweat, and tears into it. 3 months passed, and it was the day of my competition. Even before I walked out onto the mat to perform, I was already happy. I had already won. I could see my victory against my past selves. The self that was too afraid to try something that she was bad at. The self that wasn't sure if she could follow through with her commitments. And the self that was discouraged by failure. I walked home with medals, but these were only a physical token of the pride I already wore in my heart. With this, I want to leave you with my 2 pointers on pursuing something that you might be bad at. Number 1, when failure hits, find different ways to nurture your success, because there's more than one way to success and more than one definition of success. And number 2, remember where you came from and remember how far you've come. And above all, through all of this, I hope that you never lose the courage to try, because eventually you'll end up in a place that you never expected.